Can we do some dumb football questions here?
Fucking hit me.
Okay. Dumb football questions with the
Uncensored.
Rhino.
Uncensored.
I have a bajillion. We're only going to have time for a few because we got to get to a film review too. We're gonna review the Detroit Lions' incredible offensive line for the YouTube audience. By the way, if you guys haven't already, well, first of all, thank you for getting us to 20,000 subscribers on YouTube. We appreciate you guys.
Huge.
And if you haven't already, click the subscribe button and the like button, and even turn that little bell notification on so you can get alerted every time we drop a new episode. So appreciate you guys. So Tony Owens wants to know, who is the best undrafted free agent you ever played with?
Ooh. You know who was one of the best, and he was actually here? It was Marcus Sirles.
Yeah.
Dude, that
punt returner.
Unbelievable. Work ethic, extremely hardworking. Oh man, that's a
Adam
tricky...
Thielen. Adam Thielen was a UDFA.
Thielen was a baller. I'm trying to think of who else was undrafted. It's very rare that
the Niners have. Did you guys? Well, I mean, you
I'm
were
trying
an
to think
undrafted.
I'm trying to think of who came in my class. Like, we didn't have a lot of undrafted guys because my year they drafted a bunch of dudes. Man, that's a great question.
The Vikings have actually had kind of a crazy history. I mean, John Randall was an undrafted free agent. Adam Thielen, undrafted free agent.
Mankato State. Yep. I'm trying to, dude, it's very rare that those guys last. Like, I mean, that's why we can probably only think of like two off the top of our head. I mean, I was undrafted. I will say this. Sirles was speaking about the undrafted. Some Sirles was saying that somebody left a comment in this section last week about how could a status follow you your whole career. It does. I just want everyone to know that. Like, even Phil will tell you, like, the minute you walk in to do something important, people quickly look back at where you're from. Did we draft you? No. I came from another team. Did they draft you? No. Are you undrafted? Yeah. What? So what's the conversation? You want more money? You're undrafted and you're in the NFL and you're ungrateful to be here. Like, that's literally what they look at you and say. And you're like, well, it's not.
I have another theory on that too. I think the NFL is you're constantly looking to squeeze the most out of potential, right? And if a whole league and a lot of the decision makers within these organizations decide that 21-year-old kid is a first round grade with a ton of potential, that potential is going to carry over your career
forever, dude.
And even if you have, like, look at like a Marcus Davenport, for instance. You know, like that dude, he's injured half the time. You know, you see, if you're a first or second round pick, teams think Jalen Reagor. Teams think they can get something out of you.
Dude, Laquan Treadwell was still signing with teams, and I'm trying to think of who was the Jacksonville receiver. Was it Justin Blackman?
Oh my God!
Could never stay out of trouble, and they were constantly like, "But if he could get on the field," I can't tell you how many fucking times I heard that. If he could just get on the field and show everybody, and it was like, but he can't. He literally cannot right now. And they were like,
Zach Wilson is another one.
Yeah,
look at the quarterbacks that are just going to keep.
I agree. I mean, I think the one thing that's crazy about that too, we were just talking about the potential of all that stuff, is people forever and a day. Like, I remember when I was older and they would bring in first rounders that weren't making it, and they'd be like, what do you think? And you'd be like, dude, he's been on 4 teams. They'd be like, yeah, but maybe nobody knows.
Look at his relative athletic score from the combine.
Well, no, they think it's all the other coaches. They're like, maybe it's the other coaches. They don't know how to coach them. I'm like, dude, they're NFL fucking coaches. They know how to fucking coach adults. They're like, yeah, but maybe they don't. We can give this guy a try. You're like, dude, you have to give up on this kid eventually. Like, there's so many first rounders that you see get cut, that get picked up, and then cut and picked up, and you're like, how come undrafted guys can't do this? How come you can't trust it? It's crazy, because the minute an undrafted guy gets cut, you're like, hey man, I'm really sorry to tell you this, but there's probably not gonna be another chance. Like, they didn't want you in the beginning. Nobody's gonna want our scraps, right? Like, it's just how it goes. And that's one of the things that, like, if you really were to take the mindset, and this is a totally sidebar, but if you were to take the mindset of the undrafted player versus the first rounder, I know why first rounders fizzle out. They're constantly giving them more chances and more exceptions, and we'll breed with this guy. Undrafted guy, you fuck up once, they're gone. And it's the mindsets are so different. So when you do get a guy like Thielen or Sherrills or John Randall, like when you get a guy like that and he fucking starts to reach his potential, people start to love them and they want to be around them because they're
Tony
like,
Romo.
dude.
Tony Romo, dude.
They're dogs, man. They work hard because they're always afraid someone's going to cut them. I mean, shit, I remember year 8 lying about injuries because I was like, I'm afraid they're going to cut me. Like, Boone, you're year 8. I'm like, they're going to cut me. You don't understand. Like, my agent was like, are you crazy? I was like, they're going to fucking cut me, dude. He's like, dude, you have lost your mind. I'm like, I'm undrafted. You have no, like, it just follows you forever because you see them and you hear the whispers and then they kind of look at you and laugh and you're like, just told everybody I was undrafted. Dude, it bothers me. It bothered me for a long time. Now I don't give a shit, but it's
undrafted. Look at that guy over there. What a clown. Yeah, undrafted.
Can you believe this guy? Red stapler.
Lostrom 4303 says, is NFL quarterback the hardest job in the world? Simply because there's only 20 guys in the world who can do it proficiently at any given time. Of course, there's jobs with higher stakes in the world, like brain surgeon or astronaut, but there's way more than 20 people who can perform brain surgery or have been astronauts. What other job can only 20 people in the world at any given time excel at? Is starting quarterback the hardest job in the world?
I mean, I wouldn't say it's probably, obviously it's not the hardest job, but it is a really, and I'll tell you why it's
exclusive.
A hard job.
It's one of the most exclusive jobs in the world.
It is. And it's hard because you have to be kind of unanimously liked by everyone while still playing at an extremely high level, right? Like, and you have to be really ingrained in everything. Like, I think about all the starting quarterbacks I ever played with. I never asked them a question that they didn't know. Like, I was never like, hey, say the safety comes down here. What do you want to do here? He'd be like, we'll 4-call it. I'd be like, 4 calls for a run game. They'd be like, gives a shit. 4-call it. Okay, cool. Like, you never went to them and were like, hey, do you want to re-ID this? And they'd be like, I don't know. Let me think about that. Like, they'd be like, no. They're very decisive, very right to the point. They understand things on a different level. And at the same time, they get guys to play at an extremely high level. Like, the one thing I think you hear about Tom Brady all the time is people saying is that when he was out there, him and especially Peyton, like when I was in the league, one of the things about Peyton was everything was kind of Peyton's way, right? Like, if the huddle was too talkative, he'd start kicking dudes out. And he'd be like, get off my field. And there was no like, oh, hey, I'm really sorry. Like, it was like, get the fuck out of my huddle now. And so it was when you play with guys like that you know are going to set the bar every single day, that's a hard fucking job because there's going to be days where you wake up and you're like, I don't want to be here. I'm really hurting today. I have a bad fucking headache. My arms hurt. I can't feel my legs. And everyone's yelling at me. But they're constantly like, hey, it's okay. It's okay. Let's go. Like, to the point that it's not even fake. It's who they are. Like, at times people look at me like, aren't you ever annoyed with the PC answers? I'm like, no, that's who they are. Like, ingrained in them, they are that person. They're never going to point a finger at you. They're never going to really come at you. They might ask you a couple questions or they might ask you to play a little bit better. But that's just who they are. That's fucking hard, dude. You have to think about that. And if I were to say it's hard, I would say this. It's extremely hard because nobody watches all of you guys fucking eat and piss like they do with us. And the minute somebody in this realm fucks up, everyone's quick to be like, see?
It's true.
I don't see people pointing at brain surgeons like, see?
Right.
See?
Dude, a brain surgeon could screw up and someone dies, but you don't have like beat writers covering the hospital brain surgeon beat.
Right. But not only that, but like, how about this? Like, nobody follows you guys outside of your work. And the minute that somebody goes and does something, everyone's like, oh my God, like, dude, one of the mics could have been, how about the 2 tackles that got in trouble with marijuana with Kansas City? We wouldn't know that shit if they were brain surgeons. We wouldn't know that shit if they were anybody else. But the fact that they play in the NFL and they got caught, some cops like, hey, guess what? I'm going to ruin your fucking life. Watch this. Yeah, we just pulled over 2 tackles. Yeah, the 2 tackles for the Kansas City Chiefs. Guess what? They had weed. Yeah, go write a story.
Yeah.
Like, everybody's out to fucking get you constantly. Yeah, it's a shitty fucking life. And you have to always be happy. Fuck that. People constantly ask me, are you ever mad you weren't a captain? Nope. Do you know what the captains have to do? They have to smile like this all day. Yeah, we lost, I know. Listen, we will come back better next week. We'll play so much harder. We're going to watch more film. Mackie, what was my answer? I'm going to fucking kill everybody tomorrow. We're going to figure this shit out. Like, you can't talk like that when you're a captain. But they are just so like, yeah, it's fine. Move on. We're good. We can figure, like, dude.
I think saying it's the hardest job in the world is
a lot.
Like, there's people that go to school for like 10 or 15 years to become proficient at their medical craft or whatever. But if you just compared it to sports jobs,
you play football for 15 years before you become a pro. I
mean, but you don't like go to school for 15 years to be able to like qualify to even play professional football.
You're right. You have to go out and physically show that you're ready. Like, that's why the more you talk about this, the more I'm like, yeah, you're kind of making a good point.
Well,
wait. In order to become a doctor, I have to sit here and write down things and learn, which if I really wanted to do it enough would be easy. Football, on the other hand, you have to go out there and get your ass beat every day and prove every day that you want to be there. Like, dude, that's a really hard.
Here's
the more
the
you're saying it, I'm thinking you may be right.
Here's the question. And I don't know how you'd ever do this. You could never do this experiment. But if you said, let's take like 5 jobs.
Okay.
NFL caliber, high-end NFL caliber starting quarterback. Go pick the hardest job in the medical world, which I don't know. Maybe it is brain surgery. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's heart surgery, something, right? And then go pick like other jobs that are like wildly difficult, okay? I always wonder, quick side street. The architects and the builders who build these crazy sky rises, like 100-story sky rises. Right. And you don't like miss a bathroom door somewhere, or you don't miss to be precise to build structures, for instance, right? Yeah. But if you were to give everyone in the world a 20-year runway from age 5 to 25 to devote your life to being the best you can at that craft, how many people could get physically, mentally good enough to play at the same level as Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes versus John Bob, brain surgeon guy, right? Like, that would be an interesting exercise.
I think you would
we'll never get to see play out.
I think that exercise is called life. We do get the 5 to 25 as a takeoff runway. That's when people are like, what do you want to do? I do it with my kids all the time. What do you want to do, bud? I want to play this forever. Okay, so I don't see you in the garage practicing. I don't see you in the backyard playing. I don't see you doing anything, so you must not want to do that. Like, this is called life, and that's why the more I think about it, yeah, and I'm not diminishing anything. I mean, being a heart surgeon, my mom was the pediatric open heart head nurse. And so she would talk about the little babies that would come in, and they'd have to perform open heart surgery on these tiny little babies. And I can't imagine how hard that is. But at the same time,
but it's not as hard as Sunday night.
No, that shit is hard, dude. Doing pediatric open heart, that shit's got to be hard as shit. But prospectively,
until the Chiefs roll into town,
until you got Trent McDuffie coming off the edge. No,
yeah. Imagine performing that brain surgery, and all of a sudden, Aaron Donald's in your face.
Oh my God! Hey, could you imagine that? Just say you're performing brain surgery, and he just walks in and puts his hand in the ground, looks over, waiting for the snap. What the fuck is going on? Put a lot of pressure on you. Yeah. No, I mean, it's hard as shit, and I could never do it. And I think we razz those guys a lot, but honestly, those guys have a life that I would never want, man. They're constantly being looked at. They're constantly being poked at. People are constantly trying to get you to talk shit about the quarterback because they know if you do, it's instantly going to create this wedge between the team. And it's not harder than brain surgery. It's definitely not harder than pediatric open heart. I mean, it's not that, but it is very difficult. And the stuff that they ask those guys to do, it's really hard because a lot of times they make them come up with the terminology, and they'll be like, what hits your brain? And these guys are so fried. They're like, I don't really care. Just come up with a color. Green. Sure. Green works. And then all of a sudden, like in the game, people are like, fuck, what's green again? And the quarterback's like, God damn it. Green is power right when we're trying to get on the ball, you idiots. And you're like, oh God, thanks, bud. Thank you. Like, they just know everything. I don't know how they do it, man. They're incredible. I love them.
It's wild, man.
It's
mental, it's physical, it's preparation, it's. I got one more for you here in the last couple minutes.
Hit me.
Hollow Lumi says, how can an offensive line be rated top 5 in pass pro, but bottom 5 in run blocking, and vice versa? You'd think if a line is elite in one regard, that their baseline for the other would be at least average, but it seems like pass pro and run blocking tend to operate different. Is that true? Yeah. Why aren't they? If you're a great pass protector, question? Why do you suck at run blocking?
Well, they're complete opposite sides of the spectrum, my dude. One is you going completely backwards, and one is you going completely forwards. And at the same time, there are a ton of things. This is why I don't like stats, okay? Because stats can be deceiving. Like, if I have a really, really good quarterback, and I'm like, hey, hit primary or find fucking hot right now. And they're like, got it. Like Tom Brady, right? Kirk Cousins, phenomenal at that. Could put the ball. I know what everybody's doing. The problem is when you would talk about the run game, well, he just handed the ball off to somebody else who probably is not him. And you're looking for lanes. You're looking for completely different things. And I think a lot of times, and I'm going to say this since Jay isn't on here and we're probably going to get in trouble, I think a lot of times offenses are running the wrong fucking offense. They run plays where I look up and I go, what the fuck was that? Why are we doing this? Did you just run a mid-zone on 3rd and 15? What the literal fuck are we doing right now? Like, there's so many things that go into this that the two can never be compared together ever. They are so opposites ever.
Yeah. So do you think is run blocking or pass blocking easier or harder than the other? Like, what's the hard, if you're not, let's say this, if you're not great at one, what's the longer climb to be great at? Is it, can you learn pass pro or run blocking easier?
You can learn run game so much easier. Pass pro is extremely hard. You have to be like ingrained with somewhat of a foundation when you get to the league, because the one thing we tell the guys is these are not the guys you're playing in college. Those guys are, a lot of those guys didn't make it. The guys that are playing now are the guys that know how to get from A to strictly B. You know where A is? Where he lines up. B is where your quarterback is. There's no diverting that, right? Like, we watch film all the time, Mackey, with you. We talk about it. This guy is a headhunter. He's going to go through you. He's going to be efficient. All these things. Like, if you can be a good pass pro blocker, people will go, okay, I can look past the fact that he sucks in the run game. Why? Because the run game is just a lot of more work. It's just a little bit of fundamentals, teaching guys how to drive, teaching them how to run off the ball, teaching them.
You can hide it better too, probably, right? With
so
scheme
much better.
And
absolutely, especially because, like, if we don't have a good run block team up front, well, then we're just going to run duo. We're just going to pound the rock in the middle, and we're going to see what happens. There are a lot of teams that I was on that they were like, hey, we're not good at running the ball. We're going to run duo and power. Why? Because one of those is bound to squirt, and if they're not, we're just going to keep hammering on them. Like, or now you see teams that are like, well, we're just going to run the zone game because we're going to pitch the ball and the running back's going to find the lane and we'll just let him. I mean, dude, you think of Pacheco out at Kansas City. There are times they pitch him the ball and it's his furious, nasty running just gets him fucking by. And you're like, okay, cool, this is great. But the two can never be put together ever. It's kind of weird that you brought that up, because now that I think about it, people in the league, if you can be, as long as you can pass block, you can get a chance. But if you're not good at pass pro, you are instantly out, because they do not want the $55 million quarterback laying on the ground. Running back will find a lane. He'll get a wedge. We can work with this kid for 6 months to teach him how we run off the ball. We can get away with his college coaches didn't teach him shit. Interesting point. After our camp this last year, and I was thinking about this all weekend, one of the kids came to me. And then this conversation between the two of us turned into a conversation between me and everybody. And they were kind of looking at me and they were like, this was a really fun camp. And I was like, yeah, we did a lot of work, didn't we? They're like, a lot more than we thought. And I was like, I warned you. Like, we work here. We don't do anything but fucking work. We're teaching you. The kid was like, no, it was interesting because you were actually teaching us how to do the work. We don't get taught how to do it. They literally just go up and tell us, hey, you block him. And we're like, okay. Yeah. And I was like, okay, it's starting to make all the sense in the world, because when I was young, they took a lot of time to teach us fundamentals and be like, this is how we step. This is why we step like this, and I'll show you film of good and bad. And instantly it was like, okay, this is why we do things. But now it's become this thing where it's like, we're not really teaching you how to do it. We're just telling you to go out and do it. And I was like, so when you mess up, what does he say? And they're like, well, sometimes they'll just be like, hey, be better. And then we move on. And it's like,
but if you teach the how and the why, then they can self-correct better along the way too. Exactly. That's the thing.
Now, I agree with these coaches in college, and I'm not going to shoot my jabs at them without backing them up. There are 200 kids on your team. I couldn't imagine trying to teach 200 kids. That's a lot. And not only that, but you're worried more about these kids having fun and wanting to stay. And do I like this coach? This guy's making me do a lot of work. I don't see the results. Like, it's a lot, dude. But at the same time, if you can understand those things, like you said, it makes football so much easier, right? It makes correcting all these things that's what separates us from everybody else. And that's what I tell everybody. The reason you didn't make it was because in that tiny moment, you didn't know what to fix. And so you didn't fix it right away. But in those tiny moments, coaches are constantly like, what did you do wrong? I didn't take a good enough set. Don't fucking do that again then. Okay.
See, I almost feel like with how big you have to be and how much you have to retain mentally, we could ask the same quarterback question of like how many people in the world could play offensive line at a high enough level if they devote, because like most of the population isn't genetically big enough or freakish enough to even qualify. And you could narrow it down. So like what's harder, being a brain surgeon or being an elite left tackle? Is probably a pretty similar question. Yeah. Your brain surgeon, Chris Jones is bearing down on you in the
or would it be a brain surgeon or a right tackle that's not good at pass blocking and it's more of a mauler and TJ Watt just showed up? Yeah, welcome to hell, dude. Oh my God, could you imagine? I don't know what goes through their mind.
Oh, man. Those are your dumb football questions for the week here on the O-Line Committee. Click that subscribe button and the like button on the YouTube channel. Be on the lookout for Booney breaking down some Detroit Lions meat and potatoes film this week.
Let's go.
Can they climb back to the NFC Championship game and get to the first Super Bowl in franchise history? That's the question.
Before we go, so serious. Johnny asked me yesterday. He goes, "Hey, Dad, question. How big of a deal would it be if the Lions won the Super Bowl?" I go, pretty fucking big, dude, because they have never done. He was like, "Do you think Dan Campbell would like go down as a hero in Detroit?" I go, "I guarantee you, Dan Campbell never buys another fucking beer in that city, never does another thing. They would love him forever." Johnny was like, "I really hope they win the one this year. I do."
That's a great talker. Like which franchises would it be the biggest deal if they won a Super Bowl?
Detroit for sure, because they went through the worst
Cleveland
fucking years.
Vikings have never won one. Cowboys haven't been to one in 30 years.
No, it's still Detroit because, dude, you got to think about they were 0-16. Like, they were just terrible for 30 years. They were bad.
I'm going to mark this down. When Jay comes back, we're going to ask that question. The biggest deal, we'll put together like a power ranking of some kind.
Yeah,
it's good off-season fodder. All right, he's Booney. I'm Phil. For Jeremiah. Jeremiah. Sorry, buddy.